From the deep archives of the Global Defense Force, a conversation recorded between two field analysts on the devastating aftermath of the Leviathan's Gambit.
Yeah, today we're really going to dive deep into that failure, GDF command, during that critical engagement.
And our objective for you listening is pretty specific, isn't it?
It is. We're looking past the massive naval losses, the sheer physical destruction.
Yeah.
That's been covered. We want to understand something, frankly, much more chilling.
Right. Not how they failed in the moment, the mechanics of it.
Exactly. But why the Abyssals, the Titans, succeeded so spectacularly.
Yeah.
We're zeroing in on the evidence, the really shocking stuff, about monster coordination, strategic intelligence.
We're jumping straight into that source material, the archival analysis, and what it reveals is, well, it's game-changing.
It absolutely is. The idea that these Titans aren't just giant instinct-driven animals. No, they're coordinated, strategic, operating with a kind of geopolitical calculation.
Something humanity just wasn't ready for at all.
The evidence really suggests every move the GDF made was anticipated. It makes the whole ambush feel less like a battle.
And more like, what? A lesson.
A demonstration, maybe. A demonstration of superior intellect, superior strategy.
Okay, so to really grasp the scale of this failure, we need to understand the people involved first, right? Their mindsets.
Absolutely crucial. Their personal drivers, their biases, they fundamentally shape the strategic choices.
Yeah.
The whole GDF response was pulled between three really conflicting figures.
First up, Major Eva Rostova, commander of the Aegis's strike team.
Ah, Rostova. Defined by trauma, really. A past mission, hesitation, civilian lives lost. It haunts her.
So her whole doctrine becomes never hesitate again, aggressive, overwhelming force now.
She's the warrior archetype, pure and simple, resolute, demanding immediate kinetic solutions, eliminate the threat, whatever the cost. Her bias is action, force.
Then there's Dr. Kenji Tanaka, the analyst.
Tanaka, the polar opposite in a way, cold calculation, relentlessly data-driven.
Trying to model the Titans like what hurricanes, forces of nature.
Pretty much. Complex, yes, but ultimately predictable if you just have enough data. The right algorithm. He trusts the numbers completely. Human intuition, observation. That's just noise to him.
His bias is mathematical certainty. Order.
Precisely. And then the wild card. Dr. Aris Thorne, the empath.
Thorne's always been a bit of an outlier, haven't they? The radical biologist.
Very much so. Famous, maybe infamous for seeking translation before termination. Trying to understand, not just destroy.
And they carry their own guilt too, right? Something about a deep-sea organism.
Yes, a past incident. Unknowingly vivisected something that showed signs of sentience. It weighs heavily. So Thorne is the conscience, always pushing for the why.
Understand the alien mind before you pull the trigger.
That's their bias. Understanding. Communication. So you have these three competing philosophies.
Action, calculation, understanding.
And it created a strategy that was fundamentally blind. They couldn't synthesize these views.
Okay, so before Rostova even sets her trap, there's this backdrop, Leviathan's activity.
Critical context and critical intelligence that, frankly, the GDF chose to disregard.
Leviathan, the alpha abyssal serpent. It wasn't just randomly smashing cities.
No, not at all. The source material is clear. It was using targeted, high-pressure water jets, powerful enough to carve bedrock.
And using them to cut these vast, deliberate canyons through coastal cities, actively flooding them.
Systematically, purposefully. And this is exactly what triggered Thorne's most controversial early analysis.
The terraforming concept.
Exactly. Thorne argued this wasn't an attack on humans, it was terraforming, changing the very land itself.
Making the land more like the sea, as they put it.
Precisely. Preparing it for the wider abyssal faction. It was strategic, geopolitical even, claiming territory.
But Rostova and the GDF leadership, they didn't buy it?
They focused on the immediate threat, the destruction. Easier to grasp, maybe. Easier to justify a massive military response against. They couldn't, or wouldn't, except the enemy might be a strategist.
And that failure, that refusal to see the bigger picture, is what leads Rostova to design her perfect trap.
It set the stage for disaster. She thought she was playing chess against a beast that only knew checkers.
Right. Let's get into that setup, the plan itself. You can almost feel the frustration building later, but at the time, they must have felt confident.
Oh, absolutely. Rostova believed she was designing the ultimate countermove, using human ingenuity, technology, against what she saw as brute strength. The goal. And the alpha abyssal. Permanently.
The location was key, wasn't it, that fjord?
Selected with, you could say, surgical precision, maybe even arrogance, a narrow deep-sea fjord off the northern coast?
The perfect choke point.
Exactly. Militarily speaking, it's ideal. The narrow geology neutralizes Leviathan's biggest advantages, its speed, its maneuverability in open water.
Forces it into a channel, limits its options, concentrates the fight.
And the engineering. Meticulous doesn't even cover it. Submersible drones working nonstop.
72 hours straight, implanting those massive charges.
Massive subterranean seismic explosives. Into the rock walls, the seabed itself. We're not talking about standard depth charges here.
No, these were custom jobs. Multi-gigaton equivalent.
Placed strategically. The idea wasn't just to kill Leviathan. It was to trigger a catastrophic landslide, a seabed collapse, bury it under kilometers of rock. Forever.
Obliteration. Total.
Rostova's in the command center, looking at the schematics. You can almost see her finger-tapping the detonation point on the display. Absolute resolve. But underneath, desperation. She couldn't afford another hesitation.
And initially, it looks like it's working perfectly. Scene SC-12, Leviathan enters the fjord.
That colossal shadow, moving with that eerie, predatory grace. Bioluminescent eyes glowing. Sonar shows it heading right into the kill box.
Rostova's watching the feed, hand hovering over the console.
And Tanaka and Thorne are right behind her, staring at the screen. The tension in that room. Palpable. You can imagine the silence.
And then, the pause. Leviathan glides deeper, right over the heart of the trap, and it stops. Coils slightly.
The observation logs note it, as if sensing something. That's the phrase used.
But Rostova, her never hesitate doctrine kicks in hard.
She sees it as the beast's final moment. Cornered. Instinctual hesitation. She ignores the pause, or misinterprets it catastrophically.
Eyes narrow. Starts the countdown. Voice low, clear. Cutting through that tension. 5, 4,
3, 2. And that moment, that belief in her own tactical brilliance, that's precisely when it all unravels. Scene SC-17.
Just as she says 1, her finger is a millimeter from the button.
The target moves, but it's not Leviathan.
No. A completely new shadow, colossal, emerging from a deep crevice in the fjord wall, right beneath Leviathan.
It's Trenchbreaker, the abyssal crab, massive obsidian shell. And this isn't some random encounter.
This thing is known, right? In the GDF bestiary.
Oh, yes. Known as a living mining tool, a biological bulwark, specialized, legendary for its strength, its near-invulnerable shell, designed to withstand crushing deep-sea pressures.
And its appearance here, it's not accidental.
Not even close. This is where you see the strategy. Trenchbreaker moves with, and the logs say, astonishing speed. Why?
To position itself where?
Directly above the hidden charges. The entire array, perfectly shielding Leviathan.
Oh my God, it knew.
It wasn't just defensive. It was a precise countermove. It anticipated the GDS specific trap. It knew the operational signature.
Rostova's reaction, that image is burned into the archives.
Finger frozen, mouth open, utter shock. And then the command center just erupts.
Praying.
Panic, shouting.
But it's too late to abort. The blast goes off.
And the fjord erupts. Chaos. Colossal geysers, water debris, rock shards, flung hundreds of meters into the air.
And Trenchbreaker is right in the middle of it.
At the absolute epicenter, taking the full force of a multi-gigaton equivalent blast. Its shell glows intensely, absorbing, diffracting the energy.
What is that shell made of?
Later analysis showed a biosilicate matrix, incredibly complex. It essentially spreads the kinetic force across its entire mass. Under that immense pressure, underwater, it remains steadfast.
Unmoved.
And Leviathan, perfectly positioned behind its living shield, completely unharmed, untouched.
The aftermath for Rostova, watching the sonar feeds.
Utter devastation. That's the word used in the psych reports. Her perfect plan, executed flawlessly by human standards.
Failed because the enemy outthought her, knew the plan, deployed the perfect counter.
It shifts everything. It's not just operational failure anymore. It's intellectual humiliation, strategic defeat on a fundamental level.
Okay. So the initial reaction is this crushing frustration, this devastation, but then the analysis starts.
Yeah.
And the tone shifts, doesn't it?
Dramatically. From frustration to awe. A profound, almost terrifying awe at the sheer capability of these creatures, this abyssal hierarchy.
Because the initial GDF assumption, the easy explanation was just luck.
Right. Lucky coincidence. Maybe some kind of basic herd behavior. Trenchbreaker instinctively protecting the alpha. That was the first hopeful interpretation.
But as you said, Trenchbreaker isn't just some random herd animal, it's specialized.
Highly specialized. Its function is defense against immense physical force, like, say, a subterranean seismic explosion. Its deployment wasn't chance. It was the perfect counterweapon against that specific trap.
So its movement proves...
It proves the Abyssal faction isn't just a pack of monsters reacting blindly. It's a strategic hierarchy. It can identify specific military threats and deploy specialized assets, purpose-built biological weapons to counter them.
An army, not a herd.
Precisely. But the real horror, the real shift to awe, didn't just come from watching Trenchbreaker tank the explosion. It came from the data.
Right, the data collected during the ambush. This is where Tanaka and Thorne come back in.
Yes. Seen as C-23, Tanaka, outwardly calm, focused, but he's glued to a separate console, not the main tactical display.
What's he looking at?
Intricate energy readings, seismic patterns from the fjord. He's filtering out the immense noise of the explosion itself, trying to isolate what happened before detonation.
Then what did that raw data actually show? What was the smoking gun?
Okay, so the GDF trap used seismic triggers.
Right.
Small pressure sensors near the main charges, measuring tiny changes. Standard stuff.
Okay.
Tanaka observed a pattern, highly organized, just before Trenchbreaker moved. Synchronous, low-frequency seismic chatter, a unique resonance signature.
Chatter, like communication.
It started about T-minus 10 seconds before Rostova finished her countdown. Crucially, it wasn't caused by the explosion. It preceded it. It was communication.
Wait, so the seismic readings weren't just geological noise, they were signals between the Titans.
More than signals. It was the digital fingerprint of coordination. Tanaka tracked it. Trenchbreaker's huge mass started shifting, moving towards the epicenter of those seismic sensors as the chatter subsided.
Moving with calculated speed.
Calculated, deliberate speed. The data was undeniable. The two monsters had exchanged precise information about the location and maybe even the type of the threat.
Whoa. And this links back to Thorne's work, the terraforming and water jets.
Directly. Seen SC-24. Thorne approaches Tanaka's console, puts on their data goggles, and their expression just shifts. Stunned, horrified realization.
Because Thorne knew how Leviathan used those water jets, right?
Exactly. Thorne had documented it for the terraforming carving canyons with controlled bursts of hyperpressurized water. They'd assumed it was just demolition.
But now they realized.
They realized the frequency and pressure of those bursts could do something else. It could function as a form of non-visual mapping. Hydrodynamic mapping.
Like sonar, but with water pressure pulses.
Essentially, yes. Leviathan wasn't just swimming blindly into the fjord. It was actively pinging the rock walls, the seabed, with these controlled water bursts.
Using the reverberations, the feedback.
To build an internal three-dimensional map. A map of the fjord's structure, including its weaknesses.
And the GDF. They planted the charges in those weaknesses.
Of course they did. It's logical engineering. You place massive explosives in pre-existing fissures, structural weak points, to maximize the landslide effect.
But that meant Leviathan's map.
It was a literal blueprint of the trap layout. It highlighted exactly where the charges were hidden.
So when Leviathan paused and coiled, that wasn't instinct.
No, it was processing the map, it was identifying the threat, and then using those low-frequency seismic pulses Tanaka detected.
It relayed the coordinates, the threat analysis, to Trenchbreaker, its defensive asset.
Enemy has placed seismic charges at these specific weak points. Move to intercept. That level of coordination.
Which explains why it ignored decoys, countermines. It wasn't looking for those. It was mapping the actual structural points where the real threat lay.
The GDF's logical engineering choice became their fatal strategic flaw, exposed by the enemy's superior intelligence gathering.
So the bottom line, the crucial takeaway from Tanaka's seismics and Thorne's hydrodynamics.
Proof. Hard proof. These two monsters coordinated with military precision. They use specialized assets, sophisticated communication, counterintelligence. They're operating on a level of strategy, not just instinct.
They're not animals. They're an army.
A thinking army.
That conceptual leap, realizing you're facing a coordinated strategic civilization, it changes everything, doesn't it?
Fundamentally, it's not just about survival anymore. It becomes, well, geopolitical. About territory, resources, long-term plans.
Which brings us to the really terrifying part, the implications. The tone shifts again, now to fear.
Deep fear. Because if you connect this Fjord event, this demonstration of strategic thinking, back to Leviathan's earlier actions.
The terraforming.
Suddenly, it looks very different. Carving canyons, flooding cities. It wasn't just rage or random destruction.
It was calculated clearing, preparing the ground.
It looks like a prerequisite for colonization, a strategic objective, making the land suitable for abyssal biology, engineering their new environment on Earth.
Why is that geopolitical objective idea so much scarier than just, a giant monster rampage?
Because rage is maybe predictable, finite. Geopolitics implies long-term planning, resource allocation, strategy, and potentially a complete disregard for human life as anything other than an obstacle, an infestation to be cleared.
It suggests they have goals beyond just destruction. They have objectives, a command structure, maybe even an economy.
That's the chilling thought, especially looking ahead to things like the Dead Sea anomaly discovery later on.
Right, the Dead Sea anomaly. Remind us quickly how that connects here.
Well, that event suggested Abyssals the Harvesters could engage in complex, non-violent resource exchange with other factions, like the Architects Terrans. It showed flexibility, calculation, not just mindless consumption.
So if they are strategists, how do they see humanity?
Maybe not as a foe to conquer in glorious battle, maybe just inefficient occupants of valuable territory, or a resource to be managed, or, perhaps worse, an irrelevance to be swept aside if a better deal comes along elsewhere.
Rostova's ambush proved they see human military efforts as predictable, easily countered.
It certainly seems that way. And the cost of underestimating that strategic flexibility, that intelligence, it was immediate and utterly catastrophic.
The destruction of the GDF Pacific Fleet.
They didn't retreat after the Fjord. They didn't hesitate. Leviathan and Trenchbreaker emerged triumphant, moving in that terrifying synchronized formation.
Calculated.
Purposeful.
And they turned immediately towards the open ocean, towards the waiting GDF Pacific Fleet, which, after the ambush failed, was caught completely flat-footed, off guard, outmaneuvered. Expecting one stunned monster, maybe retreating, and instead getting two working together.
A specialized, coordinated assault. The fleet was designed to fight singular threats, maybe multiple uncoordinated ones. Not this.
What happened to the fleet? The archives are brutal.
Systematic elimination. Explosions ripping through battleships, carriers lifting heavily, fighter jets just swatted out of the sky like flies.
And the Titans worked together during the attack, too, using their specializations.
Absolutely. Trenchbreaker, the bulwark, moved to absorb incoming fire. Its massive shell drew the fleet's targeting systems, disrupting their locks while being nearly impossible to damage. A living shield, again.
Leaving Leviathan free to attack.
As the primary kinetic weapon. And we see that horrific detail, SC-29. The GDF destroyer, Aegis VII, takes a direct hit from Leviathan's water jet.
The same jet used for mapping.
Now weaponized. A high-speed, high-pressure cutting tool. It sliced the destroyer clean in half. Sank it almost instantly.
The fallout in GDF command must have been apocalyptic.
Rostova watching the reports. That initial shock replaced by utter devastation. Her decisive strategy didn't just fail. It led her fleet directly into an annihilation trap.
And Thorne, the one who'd been arguing for intelligence, for understanding.
Thorne is described as clearly shaken. Profound fear and disillusionment. Imagine the horror your radical theory is proven right, but the proof is the complete destruction of your own side's fleet.
Validation and defeat, all at once.
The GDF wasn't just beaten, they were strategically dismantled, exposed as primitive in their thinking compared to their enemy.
So let's synthesize this whole sequence. The meticulous trap, the unexpected counter, the data revelation, the fleet's destruction. GDF's whole understanding shifted in, what, an hour?
A single bloody hour. They went from thinking they were fighting big instinctual animals.
Beasts you could trap in a choke point using basic military logic.
So the terrifying reality. They were fighting a strategic, coordinated army with actual intelligence, with specialized biological assets like Trenchbreaker, with complex communication, and with geopolitical objectives like terraforming.
It's like shifting from fighting wolves to fighting, well, Romulans, or something equally calculating.
It's the difference between predicting a storm and predicting a grandmaster's chess moves. All their models, all Tanaka's algorithms, suddenly obsolete.
The loss of the fleet wasn't just military. It was a profound intelligence failure, rooted in arrogance. Human exceptionalism.
A refusal to believe that something non-human could possess strategic reasoning equal to, or even superior to, our own.
Which leads to an even scarier question. How did they know? How did Leviathan and Trenchbreaker know about Rostova's trap?
Was the hydrodynamic mapping enough? Did Leviathan literally map the explosives? Or Does it imply something more?
Like what? Counterintelligence. Monitoring GDF comms.
Or maybe something even more fundamental, an ability to predict human strategic thinking based on,
Yeah.
well, perhaps millennia of quiet observation, understanding our patterns, our biases.
The thought that they might be analyzing us, our psychology, that's deeply unsettling.
If they understood Rostova's trauma-driven need for decisive action, her predictable choice of a choke point, then they could anticipate her move. A cold, calculating mind like Leviathan's versus a commander driven by past failures.
It wasn't an even match intellectually.
And that's the synthesis, the core realization that echoed through the GDF after that day. Trenchbreaker's perfect counter, guided by Leviathan's deliberate mapping. Yeah. It all pointed to conscious thought, calculation, an alien mind at work.
Which leads to that single chilling line whispered in the debriefs, recorded in the archives.
It wasn't hunting, it was thinking.
That realization just shatters everything, doesn't it? Every plan, every protocol assumes a certain kind of enemy.
And the enemy was revealed to be something entirely different. The next step, the only logical step, is to assume every strategy you devise might already be known, or at least anticipated.
Okay, so we've synthesized the key findings for you, the listener. The strategic use of Trenchbreaker, the proof of coordination from the seismic and hydrodynamic data, the reframing of Leviathan's terraforming as intelligent strategy. Now, what about the future?
That's the terrifying question, isn't it? The GDF was predictable. Rostova used a classic, logical human strategy. The Abyssals read it, countered it perfectly with a specialized asset.
So now they know we're predictable. What's their next move?
They've established territory through terraforming. They've demonstrated overwhelming military superiority when challenged directly. Do they continue clearing the board, methodically removing the human infestation? Or, given that hint of flexibility, that strategic calculation, maybe something else. Negotiation, resource management. If they are truly geopolitical actors, maybe their next move bypasses warfare entirely. Maybe it focuses on long-term ecological dominance, making the planet unsuitable for us without firing another shot.
The GDF learned the hard way that day. Their enemy wasn't just bigger, it wasn't just stronger.
Their enemy was smarter.
A truly chilling thought to end on. Thank you for walking us through these deeply unsettling archives.
File sealed under Directive 07. Knowledge is containment.